Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Cilinix Crypto, and welcome to this new video right here on the crypto markets. We're going to do a full update on the crypto markets. We'll talk about a lot of interesting and valuable things. I think the title of the thumbnail is something like bull market incoming. We'll talk about that specifically as well, like whether you can actually expect bullish market circumstances like we had at the start of October to continue or not. I mean, obviously a lot has happened in the past week in the crypto markets, but we'll talk about that, right? We'll talk about whether that's a possibility and whether I personally expect that, yes or no. Now, apart from that, I'm probably uploading this video a little bit before the NYO, before the US session starts. A little bit later today, I'll upload a video talking about some of the tools I use in my trading. So some of you requested that. If you're interested in that, if you requested that, it's coming out a little bit later today, probably at 3 p.m. UTC. So be aware of that. But for now, let's get right into it. So first of all, to start off with a bit of an overview of the current situation. In terms of headlines, I really did not see anything. There's obviously a couple of things going on in the world where we could receive headlines from. And we're seeing some, like Scott Bessent is talking again. He's talking almost every day, but nothing that major where I would say, okay, that's going to affect the markets. And that's also reflected. I mean, if anything, it just pushes the prices in the same direction where we already went. Because if anything, if we take a look at the prices right now, you can see that equities pre-market, because the US session has not yet started. Pre-market S&P 500 is still rallying higher. Volatility index, as you can see after the open, has been decreasing, which is good, less unrest. And interestingly, the Russell 2000, so risky stocks, is actually doing very well, which is a positive sign for crypto as well. But we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. And then outside of that, I mean, I'm actually relatively positive about today specifically. Wednesday, very often in not only the last month, which you can see down here, but also the last 3 months has very much been a very positive day for Bitcoin. And that doesn't necessarily mean that altcoins are also going to rally, but that makes me slightly positive as well. I mean, this has been going on for a while already. And very often the Wednesday actually was bullish. So maybe that's something good to know. That also means that if today is going to be bearish, that's even more bearish than normal because Wednesday is very bullish normally. But that's a context that you need to know. Now, before we talk about Ethereum, before we talk about XRP, and before we talk about some altcoins that I wanted to talk about, let's first of all talk about whether we can actually get bullish market circumstances relatively soon. So I think there's a couple of things we need to look at. Now, one of the things I already spoke about in depth this morning, and that's altcoins. All right, and altcoins at this point of time are pulling back. All right, you can see right here that the total 3, for example, so this is an altcoin index, or others, we have hit a significant resistance level right here around $280 billion. And right here at 1 trillion.08 for the total 3, this is pulling back. These are not, I mean, on the higher time frames, these are in uptrends. On the 12-hour time frame, on the daily time frame, these are not in an uptrend. So I would personally, and we can take a look at the Bitcoin dominance as well. I mean, the Bitcoin dominance right here on the 12-hour time frame and the daily time frame, it's not a massive uptrend, but technically it is trending up, right? So based on those two things alone, I would say be careful with altcoins. I still hold a slightly bullish bias on altcoins. But I'm very selective and I'm very picky when it comes to altcoins, and I really only want the strongest. So I'm not trading a lot on altcoins right now, to be fair. And I think, you know, when we're talking about this bull market, like can we expect it on altcoins? At this point of time, I would say no. We need some significant reclaims in altcoin structures, and we need good news. Now, when it comes to good news, I actually think you can become a little bit more positive about expecting a bull market. Because even though crypto has been recovering, and rightfully so, obviously on Friday something happened that did not happen in most markets. But if you take a look at other markets, such as the S&P 500, such as the Russell 2000, very often crypto is correlated to this. And those are both rallying, right? Regardless of what happens and regardless of the fear that's still in the markets, these are rallying. So that is a reason why I'm slightly you know, I have a slight bullish bias on the markets. And like I said, I also have a slight bullish bias on altcoins. I just think you need to be careful. And I think we need to wait for some confirmation. And when we're talking about Bitcoin, I think the same the same is shown, right? I mean, Bitcoin is finding some stability right here. But ultimately, we need to break 114,000 if we actually want to see Bitcoin trading higher. So can you expect bullish markets? Based on the fundamentals, I would say yes. Based on the technicals, I would say wait for a little bit of confirmation, and then you can expect that. And then you can actually act upon that as well with your trading and investing. Now, obviously, those are my thoughts, but still, do with that what you want. But okay, when we're talking about XRP, XRP right now is just doing exactly what Bitcoin is doing, consolidating. I have good hope that we can recover higher, but XRP is definitely not a coin, unfortunately, that I would focus too much on. Ethereum is doing better. Ethereum is holding on relatively well. I expect Ethereum to consolidate in this area right here between 3,700 and 4,300, but I think it's very likely, unless we see major escalation, for example, in the trade war between the United States and China, I think it's most likely will rally higher as well, unless we see escalation, like I said. And then finally, altcoins. There's a couple of altcoins that I am fairly interested in, but like I said, it's a limited list, and this is definitely also not a call to buy. All right, I think you need to be very careful with what you buy right now. But BitTensor is still incredibly strong. Its halving is coming up in the middle of December. I think it's very likely. I think it's quite likely we're going to pull back right now, by the way. But I think it's very likely that from that pullback at some point of time in October, November, it's going to rally again quite aggressively. So keep your eyes on that. Although I would be against buying right now, but those are my personal thoughts. Then Syrup, I think, is quite strong. This is one of the best recovering cryptos since last week. It's actually trading higher, and fundamentally, I love the project. So this is Syrup. You'll be able to find it. Maple Finance is the full name of the project. And then last but not least is a project that at this point of time has no momentum, but fundamentally I think it's very strong, and that's Aerodrome Finance. Now, like you said, if you take like you can see, if you take a look at the chart right here, you would say this is super bearish. Why would I buy this? But with Base, the Base ecosystem, right? So that's the layer 2 created by Coinbase. With that still growing and also getting a token from that probably in the next couple of months. And just in general, some of the price history we've seen from Arrow, I think this is a coin you should have on your watch list for a potential long-term hold, buy and hold. But like I said, would I buy it right now? No. But I do. I found it today, and I thought, I'm just going to highlight that momentarily in my middle of the day market update. So that's it for now. Like I said, the US market is opening in a moment. Be aware of that. I expect a lot of volatility, but for now, I still have a slightly bullish bias while waiting for that confirmation. And those are my thoughts. Thank you for watching. Take care and bye.